In the winter of 1878, in a Michigan logging camp up in the pine country, 16 men sat down to meat that looked and smelled like any other winter supper. The meat was salty, it was smoky, it was brown on the outside. By the time the thaw came, most of those men were dead or dying. The bears got the blame in the stories that followed. But it was not the bears. It was a myth. The myth said that if the meat was salty, if it was smoky, if it was brown on the outside, it was safe. That myth has put more men in the ground than any animal in the woods. I am Old Man Yoder. I was raised on this farm in Lancaster County, the same land my great-grandfather worked after he came from the old country. My father taught me these ways the same way his father taught him kite, with a sharp knife, a wooden barrel, and the cold of late November. We still kill the hogs when the weather turns hard. The English world around us mostly forgot how. We did not. Today I will walk you through every step of putting a hog down for the winter the way it has been done in our community for generations. There are 6 pieces. Miss any one and the meat is lost. Miss the last one and a man can be lost with it. The last piece is the one most people never hear about anymore. We will come to it in its time. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, did your grandparents keep a barrel or a smokehouse? I read what people write, and it helps. Let me know what still needs to be remembered. Piece 1. The first thing that must be right is the weather. This whole skill starts before the knife ever comes out. It starts with the cold. Picture a late November morning on the farm. Breath shows in the air, the ground is hard, the hogs have been finished on corn and whatever the fields gave. A good hog feels solid when you put your hand on the shoulder, like knocking on oak. That solid feel tells you the animal is ready. Butcher only in cold, dry weather. Late November through January has always been the window. The air below 40 degrees is your free. Cold storage. The carcass must chill through overnight, ideally a full day, before you cut. Choose an animal around 200 to 300 pounds live weight with good back fat and firm skin. Slaughter and bleed thoroughly. Blood left in the meat will sour the cure. That is an old rule, and it still holds. In our community, we still say it the same way. My father said it, blood left in is trouble waiting. Scald the carcass at 140 to 150 degrees so the hair scrapes clean. Too cold and the hair stays. Too hot and the skin sets and the scraper slips. Gut the animal, hang it from the gambrel in the shed or from a stout beam, and let it chill until it stops steaming and you firms to the touch. Only then do you cut. The federal farm bulletins from the early 1900s told households the same thing. Cure when the weather is cold and dry or the meat will sour. That is not folklore. That is plain instruction written down for anyone who would listen. Most people who try this in September or October get punished for it. Warm meat and warm air grow the wrong things before the salt can do its work. Wait for the hard cold. Your calendar is but the first tool. This week, mark the first hard freeze after Thanksgiving. That is when the work begins, not before, is the when. The next piece is the what pad, which cuts go which way, and the mistake 9 out of 10 people make on their first hog that costs them the best meat on the animal. Piece 2, the cut. Your grandfather would. Stand at a plank table in the cold, sleeves rolled, the chilled hog in front of him. He did not cut the way. A store butcher cuts. He cut for storage. Take the hams off the hindquarters whole, bone in, trim square. These take the longest cure. Take the bacon sides from the belly bone, rectangular slabs, rind on. Take the shoulders for curing or for sausage. Save the jowls for salt pork or bacon. Save the fat back. The smaller trim head, belly ends, side scraps, and edges tat goes into the salt pork barrel. Hams whole, bacon square, shoulders your choice, everything else into the barrel. The United States Department of Agriculture still recognizes this pattern in its home preservation papers and the National Center for Home Food. Preservation teaches the same principles today. This is not an antique, it still works. The common mistake is trying to cure. The loin. Do not. The loin is too lean. It cures unevenly and dries out. Save the loin for fresh eating. The cuts that carry fat. Fat is what carries the salt in and keeps the meat from turning hard over the long months. In my father's time and in mine, we learned early that the pretty lean cuts are for the table now. Fat cuts are for the winter. If you are starting with store-bought meat, buy pork belly. Not loin, belly. That is the right place to learn. That is the training wheel. Piece 3, the salt. This is where the work begins to carry weight. Use coarse, non-iodized salt to stock salt, kosher salt, or rock salt for the brine. Iodized table salt darkens the meat and leaves a bitter taste. There are 2 ways. Dry salting. Rub the salt on every surface, into every crease, against every bone. Miss a spot and that spot can sour from the inside. That is bone sour, and it can ruin a whole ham. Brine curing. Pack the meat in layers in a barrel or crock, salt between the layers, then cover with brine until every piece is under. The old ratio is simple: 1 pound of salt to 1 gallon of water. Boil the water, dissolve the salt, and cool it below 40 degrees before it touches the meat. The test our people still use: float a clean raw egg in the brine. If a piece the size of a quarter shows above the water, the brine is strong enough. If the egg sinks, add more salt. If half the egg rides up, you have made it. Too strong. 1 pound of salt, 1 gallon of water. The egg floats, the meat stays under, a weight on top. My father used the same ratio his father used, and the federal bulletins printed the same number. Modern curing manuals still cite it. 200 years, 1 number. The most common failure is patchy salt. A man rubs the outside, feels finished, and skips. The joints, the bone ends, and the pockets under the shoulder. The salt must reach every square inch. Miss the pocket and the pocket rots. The whole piece can be lost. When I was a boy, I salted my first ham and skipped the joint at the bone. 6 weeks later, the smell told the story. My father did not raise his voice. He only said, "Now you know. Rub every inch, even the ones that are hard to reach." I have never forgotten it. This weekend, if you want to begin, buy 5 pounds of coarse non-iodized salt. That is the starting place. Piece 4. The barrel. This is the container. Use a food-safe, non-reactive vessel. In the old days, it was an oak barrel or a stoneware crock. Today, a food-grade plastic bucket, a glass crock, or stainless steel will do. Never use plain iron, aluminum, or copper. Salt, brine, and reactive metal make bad flavors and, in the worst cases, real harm. Your great-grandfather knew this. He used wood or stone. Full stop. Pack the meat in layers. Meat, salt, meat, salt. Pack it tight. Air pockets are where trouble starts. Pour the brine over until every piece is submerged. Lay a clean board on top and set a clean stone or brick on the board so nothing rises above the brine. Cover the vessel loosely, cloth or a wooden lid pat, so it can breathe but stays free of dust. The barrel wants steady cool, between 36 and 40 degrees. A cellar corner, a spring house, or a spare refrigerator that holds steady. If the temperature swings hard, the cure suffers. Walk through your house or outbuildings this week and find the place that stays cool and even. That is your curing place. Every old farm had one. Yours does too. You only need to name it. Piece 5, time and smoke. Curing time under brine at the right temperature is measured in days and weeks. Salt pork trim needs 2 to 3 weeks and then will hold under brine. Bacon sides need 7 to 14 days depending on thickness. Whole hams need roughly 2 to 3 days per pound. A 12-pound ham will sit 24 to 36 days. Turn the meat every few days. Move the top pieces to the bottom. Skim any scum. Brine should stay clean and smell clean. If it turns cloudy, ropey, or sour, start over. After the cure, rinse the meat briefly, pat it dry, and hang it in cool air for 12 to 24 hours so the surface becomes tacky. That tacky surface is called the pellicle. It takes the smoke evenly. Cold smoke only below 90 degrees. Use hardwood, had hickory, oak, apple, or maple. Never softwood or pine. Smoke for days, not hours. A ham may take a week of days and days off. Bacon may take 3 to 5 days. The smoke is for flavor and surface protection. The salt is what preserves. Below 90, hardwood, days, not hours. Smoke does not preserve. Salt does. If your smokehouse or rig cannot hold the temperature below 90 degrees, do not cold smoke. Hot smoke the meat to a full cooked temperature instead. There is no shame in that. Better a fully cooked piece than a risk. Buy a simple probe thermometer if you do not have one. $15. Smoking without a thermometer is guessing. Piece 6, the last piece, the one that was forgotten. This is the step the men in the Michigan pine country skipped. Picture a man kneeling by the fire. The meat is turning on the spit. The outside is brown and the fat is hissing. It smells right. He cuts a slice from the outside, hey? Golden, salty, good. He cuts deeper. The center is still pink and only warm. He eats it anyway. That is the myth, and that is the funeral. Salt slows the bacteria that cause ordinary spoilage. Smoke slows surface molds. Cold storage slows everything. None of them reliably kill trichinella. Spiralis, the parasite that can live in pork and in wild game, especially bear and wild boar. The parasite survives salt. It survives smoke. It survives cold. What kills it is heat, sustained heat all the way through the meat. The old myth said salty and smoky and brown on the outside meant safe. The reality is that the inside must be cooked through. Modern guidance is 145 degrees Fahrenheit for whole cuts with a 3-minute rest and 160 degrees for ground meat. The old way of judging was by eye and feel. Opaque all the way through, no red or translucent center, juices running clear, firm to the bone. This step applies to salt pork and bacon too, even after weeks in the brine. And days in the smoke, you still cook it through before you eat it. Fry the bacon until it is crisp. Boil or simmer the ham until it is tender. Cook the salt pork before it goes into the beans. Salt slows, smoke flavors, cold holds, heat kills. Cook it through every time. The 16 men in that logging camp did not die because their salt was weak or their barrel leaked. Their salt was fine, their barrel was tight, their smoke was clean. They died of trichinosis. They trusted the look and the smell of the outside and did not finish the work with fire. 90 more seconds of proper heat would have been enough. In our community, we still say it plainly, the barrel keeps the meat, but the fire finishes the work. So here is the whole method, plain and complete. Cold weather, a solid hog, full bleed, overnight chill, then the knife, hams whole, bacon square, shoulders as you choose, the rest to the barrel. Coarse non-iodized salt, 1 pound to 1 gallon of water. The egg float test. Brine cooled before it touches the meat. Rub every square inch, especially the joints and pockets. Pack the vessel tight, layered, submerged, weighted in a non-reactive container in a steady, cool place between 36 and 40 degrees. Time is measured in days for bacon and in weeks for hams. Rinse, dry, form the pellicle. Cold smoke below 90 degrees with hardwood, days rather than hours. And then the piece that must never be skipped. Cook it through, all the way through, every time. That is the skill. That is what kept families fed through the winter when there was no icebox and no store down the road. It is still good. It still works. You do not have to take on a whole hog this week. Start small. This Saturday, buy a 5-pound piece of pork belly and 5 pounds of coarse, non-iodized salt. Rub every surface well. Keep it cold. Turn it each day for a week. Rinse it. Dry it. Cook it through. Eat it on Sunday. That is enough for a beginning. The old ways were never about fear. They were about taking care of what was given so the family would have enough when the snow came. That knowledge is still here. Now it can be yours if you want it. I am a local craftsman. Tell me in the comments what your people used to do with the meat when winter came. Different places had different ways, and the stories that come in help me know what still needs to be passed along. May the work of your hands be blessed.